In 1944, he became the youngest person to be executed in the United States in the 20th century. He was only 14 years old. George lived with his parents and siblings in a small town called Akulo in South Carolina at the time. The town was divided by rail tracks. One side, the white families, and the other side, the black family. George and his parents lived close to the road tracks. 23rd March 1944, two young girls named June Betty Benica and Mary Emma Ten was riding on their bicycle through the town. They passed the area where George and his sister were standing. The girl stopped and asked them simple question where they could get flour nearby. George and the sister spoke to the girls briefly and the girls rode away. That was the last time they were seen alive. Later that evening, the body of the two girls were discovered in a ditch not too far from the neighborhood. They were equipped with heavy objects believed to be railroad spikes. The town quickly fell into panic and the police began searching for the suspect. Very soon, suspicion turned to a 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. During questioning, George was alone. His parents were not allowed to be present. He had no lawyer with him. Officers claimed the boy confessed to the murderers, but there was a problem. There was never a written confession, neither were there any recording of supposedly what he said. Meanwhile, after George was arrested, family began receiving threats from the other white families in the town. Fearing for their safety, they were forced to flee from their town. George was left alone in jail, 50 miles away from his family. When his trial began, he moved extremely fast. George was given a court-appointed lawyer named Charles Purdin, but the lawyer did very little to defend him. He called no witnesses, and he barely questioned the persecution claim. He presented almost no evidence to support George's innocence. The entire trial lasted for 2 hours. The jury was made up of entirely white men. After hearing the case, they left the courtroom to deliberate. Just 10 minutes after, they returned with their decision: guilty. 14-year-old George Stickney Jr. was sentenced to death by electric chair. John spent weeks in jail waiting for execution. He was alone, scared, and separated from his family. June 16, 1944, John was taken to his execution chamber. The electric chair had been built for adults, but George weighed only about 95 pounds and was just 9 feet tall. Witnesses later said the strap weighed too big for his small body. When the electricity was turned on, the mask covering his face fell off. Moments later, John Stickney Jr. was dead. He was only 14 years old. For decades, the case received very little attention. People believed something had terribly gone wrong. There was no physical evidence linking George to the crime. There was no documented confession, and the trial that sentenced him to death was just few hours. 70 years later, the case was brought back to court. In 2014, a judge named Kamau Moric brought back the case and made historic decision. He ruled that George Junior Stickney had not received a fair trial and his constitutional rights was being violated. The conviction was officially overturned. It was far too late to save his life. But after 70 years, the court finally cleared his name. Today, John Stickney Jr. rests in a cemetery in South Carolina. He was just a child and he never had a chance to grow up.